All right, and let's make it happen. We are recording. So everyone can hear me. I'm going to mute everybody else. And oh, hold on, 1 second here. My son locked the rest of the family out the house, so I had to go let them in. So welcome everybody to tonight's call. This evening, I'm so glad that everyone is on and is able to join us. This week we are continuing with our executive training. I am going to see if I can do the screen share here. Let's do this one here. All right, can everyone see my screen? Yes? Okay. So this evening we are continuing on in the growth section of executive training. And the first, I guess, section that we talk about is the executive planner and why that it might be so beneficial for us to use within our business. That's not the one I want. Here it is. All right. So the first video that we had, it kind of walks through in detail the executive planner, and I thought maybe we could kind of go through that a little bit. So if you notice on the first page, it talks about with getting started, you need to keep your momentum. So no doubt if you've already made it to executive, then you have some things that are rocking and rolling within your organization. And if you're shooting for silver and above, you definitely need to keep that momentum going. So if you notice, two of the questions that it first ask, just for reminder's sake, and kind of to reaffirm that, is why I continue to share Young Living, and I am executive on or before such and such a date. So when you think about that first question, that definitely rolls down to your why. So why are you involved in Young Living? Why do you continue to share it with individuals? Because sometimes it's easy to lose sight of why you're doing certain things. So that's good for a quick reminder. And then if you have not reached executive yet, it's great to plug in a date here that you're striving for. So that's your goal. So those who are on the call this evening who may not be executive, if you haven't had a chance, I really urge you to go ahead and print this out, because that's part of the assignment from the video, is to print these out as we're going through them and fill in that date that you're trying to hit executive by. Then it takes us into our next section here, which talks about action steps to achieve executive. So the first thing that's there is to fill in your calendar with classes, one-on-ones, or events to meet new people. So if you notice, there were about 4 or 5 different calendars that were there. I want to pull up the monthly calendar. So this is a great one to use. Obviously, failing to plan is planning to fail. So you write in the month and go through your dates, plug in. I thought one thing that was interesting is to plug in all of your non-negotiable things first. So if you have other obligations, whether it be spiritual obligations, family obligations, work obligations, things that are non-negotiable, go ahead and plug those into your calendar first. After you plug those in, then it allows you to see what you still have available. So going back to in the executive planner, it talks about plugging in our classes, one-on-ones, trainings, anything like that. This allows us to do that without conflicting or interfering with any other events that we may have planned for the month. Some of the other things to note that are on the calendar that are actually kind of interesting is each month you can write in down here the number of team members, so you can kind of chart and track your growth. The number of new enrollees, so that's individuals that you have enrolled as well as your team, to see how much you've grown by. And then this was an interesting one I hadn't even thought about before, but plugging in essential rewards dates. So for your team members, you can plug in all of their essential rewards dates when they're supposed to process, and give them a heads up, maybe a few days out, to remind them that their ER is going to process, and to remind them to look at it. Sometimes we have people who get repeat orders or things that they may not necessarily have wanted at that time, just because they forgot that their ER was going to process. So it's beneficial for you to keep track of your team's ER dates as well. So very important to you. So just print out those calendars, use those as well. Other things it mentions to do is to follow up with those who are personally enrolled, so you can keep track of that on your calendar as well. I also have you schedule dates for conventions or events in your team to promote those. We'll talk about promoting events a little bit later. But plug those into your calendar as well. You'll want to keep track of those. The biggest thing on this page is 80% of your time should still be spent prospecting. So that's why those things are plugged into your calendar first, because those are the actual money-making things that should be on your calendar. Number 2 was maximize your time for success. So figuring out your why, plug into your team calls like you're doing tonight, daily personal development, such as GoPro, complete the time log activities. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Learn how to best spend your time and using the activity daily tracker. That one's actually pretty interesting. When we get there, we'll talk about that. And the third thing that you'll be spending a lot of your time doing is you'll be mentoring. So individuals that are newly started and you want to help them reach their goals, whether it be through product or with the business, you're going to be spending time with the 2 leaders that you identified and walk them through the STAR and Senior STAR training as they progress. And then also teach those on your team to follow up like you did in number 1. So you want to have duplication. Those are the 3 main action steps that you're going to be doing as an executive. Oh, go ahead, Dana.
So I was just going to add too with, can you go back up?
Sure.
When it talks about as far as mentoring, and you want to make sure that your people are following up. And it says if they do not, you need to. So I think that's very important too. We don't want anybody in our organization to, oh, I'm not really in the thing.
I was trying to get you
out. Oh. You don't want anybody in your organization to fall by the wayside. And then it's like once they're going inactive, then all of a sudden they hear from you. So if they don't have like an active leader or builder above them that are doing this follow-up, doing this contacting, then really we want to take it upon ourselves to make sure that they are getting some follow-up and some care.
Yeah. So if you notice, you're spending a good majority of your time prospecting, but you're also transitioning more into a mentorship role. So that's why this is there. This allows you to keep track of that. So you do have the business plan. So who are your business builders that you're noticing? And we identified a couple of weeks ago, how do you pick out your leaders? Does anyone want to chime in on that, on what they remember about how do you identify your leaders on your organization? Oh, Tashina, I think you're still muted. Hold on. All right, go ahead now.
They got to do their homework, right? We give them assignments and they follow through.
Yeah, there you go. So once you found them, you plug them in, and they have to at least be having a PV order every month of at least 100, right? So you plug those in and you use those to keep track. Their goal volume for executive is to help them hit 2,000 PV, which, if you note, is actually Senior STAR. So the goal of every executive is to help at least 2 individuals reach Senior STAR, help them get what they want, and in turn, you'll get what you want. So it allows you to keep track of that. And then you want to celebrate and validate as well as they make progress. This sheet here is to be used to draw out your organization. So I wanted to rotate this. Maybe I can't. Hold on. There we go. So I can rotate this one. So this one actually is the sheet that you would use to draw out your organization so that you could see what it would look like. So what your executive team would look like. So this first bubble here is where you will plug yourself in and your 6 leaders as you're trying to track them, as well as their downlines, so that you can keep track of everyone in your organization as you continue to grow. So that's a great tool to use as well. So if you're not using the executive planner, I know that Dana and I looked at it a while ago, right? Mm-hmm. So I do recommend that you use it. Was there anything that anyone grab from that video if they had a chance to look at it, or if not, if they've looked at the executive planner, anything that they would like to add?
We know that we have a lot of individuals that are senior star here, and so I would definitely encourage everyone that is senior star, if you have not filled it out, to definitely fill it out and work really to implement some of the things that are mentioned on there, because we have a plan in place where you can get executive in 3 months. You may need to take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, but still having that written down, they mentioned, which is mentioned all the time, a goal without a written down plan is just a dream. We can't achieve it unless we have it written down.
Absolutely. So you got to take advantage of it. Those calendars are excellent if you are the type of person that keeps a planner, like a physical planner, and even if you're not, it's a great tool to utilize. So like Tashina's mentioned, we definitely want to fill that out and utilize it. So let's move on to the first video that we had in that section, which was entitled "The Game Changer, Starting Your New People Off Right." This video was actually kind of a good reminder for me, because I feel like there's certain things that maybe I've gotten away from doing that were kind of like, hey, these are important steps you still need to do. So one of the first things that Scott and Brenda talked about in that video is, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so we can see faces. But one of the first things that Scott and Brenda talked about was, when you get somebody started, the best way that you get duplication within your organization, or you get legs underneath your organization, is to validate their decision. So whether someone wants to actually grow a business or they just want to be a product user, either one is fine, but you want to validate their decision to get started with Young Living. So you say something to the extent of, I'm so glad that you decided to join Young Living on your wellness journey. They have some amazing products. I think you're really going to enjoy. If they're really into the products, or if they want to know about the business, then hey, I'm so glad you decided to get involved with Young Living. This is an excellent company. This is a great business. So I'm just glad that I get to work with you and helping you to do that. And the reason that you do that is because sometimes when people get started, they're unsure of the decision that they've made. So maybe they didn't have $160, $180, or what have you sitting around, and they may be starting to feel some reluctance about their decision to invest their money for that reason. When you validate their decision, it's kind of like reassurance, like you made the right choice. And it kind of helps to set all of their cares aside and kind of put them at ease. So that's the reason you want to validate their decision first. The second thing that you want to do is you want to set expectations. So you want to let them know, what does it look like to be involved with Young Living? We have numerous events, we have training, we have community. If a person wants to pursue the business side, the money is there as well. So set that expectation, but help them to set a realistic expectation. So let's say someone comes in and they're like, I never want to get sick ever again. Is that possible? Maybe, but I mean, I would set a realistic expectation and say, okay, well, we're going to help you get above the wellness line. There's certainly some changes that will be beneficial for you and your family that you can probably make to help you feel a lot better. Or if someone comes in and they're like, I want to make $500,000 a month. Okay, that's great. If you've only been in for like a day or so, let's set a more realistic expectation. Maybe let's help you get your kit paid for this month, or let's help you reach senior star if you're a real go-getter. Whatever it is, just help it to be realistic. Let them know that just like any other business, there's going to be ups and downs. So it's not all unicorns and rainbows. We want to prepare them for any landmines that they may run into being a part of this business. And so it's very important that you set their expectations, because we don't want anyone to get involved and then feel bad about their decision because no one told them about the pitfalls, especially if they're ones that you've already experienced. So that was one of them. And then the third step was get them started, get them into the B2NL, get them doing the getting started training. If they want to pursue business and move on further than that, help them start the STAR training. set an expectation with that they'll complete that training. And also he talked about doing like a training session with them so that you understand what they expect to get out of it. You know, if they're not getting the results that they want and they kind of shy away, they stop answering the phone, you know, you ask them, how do you want me to deal with that? How do you want me to respond? Do you want me to leave you alone and let you do your own thing? Or do you want me to stay on top of you to help you reach the goals that you set out? I thought that was really a really big one, because sometimes, you know, it may not necessarily be that they need you to call them time after time after time. It could be that they're like, hey, I might just need you to hang out with me and let's go do something fun. I might be in a slump and I just need to get out of the house and do something. It doesn't always have to be business related, but it has to be something to help build that relationship and help them with whatever they're going through at that time so they can continue to press on. Those were like the main takeaways. That video was like 20 minutes long. I know there was more and I feel like I missed some, but does anyone have anything else that they want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. It brought it back home to me because I think that this is what will be a weakness that I have to fight. So when Brenda talks about she wished she knew back when, was to not do everything for your downline. You know, encourage them and empower them to do whatever it is, and don't just keep doing things for them, because they're not going to grow and neither will you, and you're just going to end up exhausting yourself. So while you're doing all this education and relationship building, just be careful about, you know, there is a line, and make sure that they are taking the reins and they're taking responsibility for their own growth, because if they don't, they're never going to make it. They're never going to reach their goals.
Yeah, that was a very good one, Andrea. It actually reminded me of what Scott said. He said to remind them that they're going to get out of it what they put into it, whether they're a product user or a business builder. So if you're not using your oils and you come and you're like, I don't feel any better, I still feel like crap, well, whose fault is that? It's not the person who gave you the knowledge and the product. It's the person who didn't take advantage of it. You know, so same thing with the business. If they're not seeing results, let them know that their success is based entirely off of what they do, not necessarily what you do as their mentor. So excellent point. Tashina, you had something?
Yeah, and one of the things he also mentioned is if they're coming back to us, remember that partially it's our fault, right? Because we probably didn't start them off right. And so we need to reset those expectations. So like, I just actually this weekend had someone that I was chatting with a little bit that I gave oils as a gift, like almost last summer, I think. They got an Active and Fit kit, right? And it was really for their son, but they've been using it. And like, you know, they said, oh, my allergies have been acting up and the oils aren't working. Like, they're thinking that they can use them like medicine. And so it was my job, like that was one of the reasons why I did the Facebook Live I did on Friday, to educate people and let them know and understand that, like, okay, first of all, how I got to where I am, I do use things other than oils. I use apple cider vinegar. I use honey. There's a lot of other things that I use, number one. And number two, I use this stuff every day to repair my system. You've been suffering for 30, 40 years, and you think that you're going to use the oils like Benadryl twice, and then you don't understand why it doesn't work. So there's a lot of times when it comes to educating our people and training them in the business where we have to reset the expectations and make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else? No, we'll move on. All right. So let's move on and talk about our next video that we had in that series. It was Invest in Yourself. This was a huge one because I feel like sometimes we don't always get that across, that network marketing is a legitimate business. And just like you have a legitimate business has investments, like you need to, if you wanted to open a Wendy's or a McDonald's, you would have some type of initial investment to make. You have to do the same thing in network marketing. So there's going to be your initial investment of buying your kit and getting your membership. That is expected, you know, if you're going to be part of Young Living. And then there's going to be things to maintain your business. So, you know, in that same scenario, if someone buys a Wendy's or McDonald's, they don't just buy it and then not buy supplies to be able to keep their business running and to make it profitable. You have to be willing to invest to have the products that you need. So, you know, obviously you're buying your own products for personal use, but maybe you're also purchasing products to share. Maybe you're purchasing information, you know, like guides and things, share guides to share with individuals. And then they also talked about investing in yourself. So are you reading books and doing personal development so that you can get better in certain areas of your business? Maybe you have a hard time presenting in front of individuals. So you have to find time to invest in how do I get better at doing that. If I'm having problems prospecting and inviting individuals to classes, invest in things like GoPro that talk about specifically how to invite. So that was the gist of that video. It's talking about not necessarily just the financial investments that you make within this business, but also making the investments in yourself so that you can become better as not only a network marketer, but also as a person in general. So why that was so important. Does anyone have anything that they want to share from that video?
Yeah, I liked it. Actually, for me, it made a little more sense because later, one of the other videos, they gave you the second piece of the information, but they were saying, like, right now, we're not going to hire John Maxwell, like $10,000 or whatever it is. And the point that they were bringing out was that when you're starting out an investment in yourself, that $15 book, you might think, oh, it's $15. I don't want to spend that now. But it's not just, you're not buying a book. It's not like you're going to Barnes & Noble and just picking up some book. You're actually investing in yourself. You are educating yourself. You're giving yourself the tools so that you can keep going. And as you grow, you are going to, like they said, they just hired John Maxwell to mentor them. You know, so when you get to that point, you might be investing larger amounts of money, but right now those little bits of money, and it's really not that much. I mean, even somebody that's struggling to make ends meet, you think about how many times you buy a cup of coffee. You know, if you're that tight on money, you know, maybe not picking up a cup of coffee a couple of days till you get a little in your pocket to buy what you need. But today's world, Tashina's given us a whole crap load of different resources that are free. You know, things are on the internet, so you invest your time just as much as you invest your money.
Yeah, and I didn't get this far. I haven't listened to this video, but I've always, way before all of us, been into self-development. I mean, I've just found very clearly that there are laws that have been put in place by God that govern social interaction, govern interaction between humans, and they're very predictable. And I've always been very studious and read lots of books when it comes to personalities and interacting with people and things of that nature. And the great thing about it is that this helps you in everything. Like, it will help you deal with people in your place of worship. It will help you at work. My income with Young Living has increased, but my income with GM has increased since I've been doing Young Living. If it was not for Young Living reminding me of some of the books that I needed to have, I probably wouldn't have handled the situation with my last boss as well as I did. One of the books that I re-listened to was a John Maxwell book, and then another one was one that was going around with the leaders that I had read in the past. It was the question behind the question about personal accountability. I was in a situation where I felt my boss was being unfair to me, but I used that information that was being suggested by this business to get through that situation. If I didn't know who Sean Acor was, I probably wouldn't have handled my divorce as well as I did. Like, his happiness book and course and making a goal to choose happy every day helped me in my personal life. So the investment goes way beyond, and it's just so much more. I talk to people that have nothing to do with Young Living when I'm out in field service with my little people that I mentor about the color personalities, about love languages, about tons of different stuff that I'm doing and reminded of from Young Living, so that they can be able to interact with people better. So when you think about it, the fact that you're going to get a benefit from it 3-4 times over in different areas of your life, there's really no excuse to not invest in yourself in that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. It makes it clearly it's well worth the money spent. I know that Dana and I have invested in a Scribd account, or if you have Audible. Nice thing I like about Scribd is it's access to millions of books, some of them in audio format. So it's a one-time cost that you pay. Well, not one-time cost, but one cost monthly. That gives you access to so many of these resources. And I think it's like what, $6 a month. So a small investment to make in yourself for such a great return. So I definitely recommend that people get involved in that. All right, so let's move on to the next section that talks about obtaining a replicating website. So I'm not going to force everyone to read the PDF. You can read it in your personal time, but it talks about the advantages of having a replicating website. And I think when this was written, it probably was at a time when it wasn't so easily accessible to have something like that. But in essence, they're talking about, let me see if I can pull it up here. So in essence, they're talking about where can someone go that's not tech savvy, that has an online presence that people can get the information that they need and contact you if they need to contact you. Look up information about you and your business. One of the recommendations that they made was using Marketing Sense, but that's why I say this is probably a little bit dated, because even though there are individuals still using Marketing Sense, this was 2016, so this actually preludes what Young Living did and actually built replicating websites for us as distributors. So if you don't know about it, Young Living has websites that you can purchase. I think they're what, $8 a month or something like roughly. Like I believe it's about $8 a month. I believe someone told it. But you can set up with all of your information, where people can contact you. They can learn about Young Living as a company. You can even customize what shows up on your page as far as like the My Product. So maybe you want to appeal towards a certain market. You can choose what kind of products show up in your product area. You can change the layout, and it's pretty much like pick and choose without having to be tech savvy. If individuals want to get in contact with you, they plug in their information and it automatically sends it back to you. You can put in your events going on for you and your team. So Dana did a Mommy and Me pamper party that Tashina was at earlier. You notice it's on the page so people can get information about events coming up. There's another event that we're doing again on the 19th that's talking about kicking toxins out of your household. So that's on there. So having a replicating website has a lot of benefit, because no one has time to really build a website or maybe the know-how, and it normally takes hours and hours to get it right. So if you want to have an online presence outside of social media, this is a great avenue to use that Young Living has actually provided one for us. But you can also use Marketing Sense as well. Does anyone have anything that they want to add on that?
I was going to say, I have heard good things about the new Young Living websites, but there's a lot of companies out there that are doing this for us, and you can shop around and figure out which one you like. I have my website, and it's funny because I kind of put the cart before the horse. I did so many of the things ahead of time before I was there, planning for being there. So I've had my website before I had my first downline member. Mine happens to be with YLDist, YLDIST, and they're great. I went into it not knowing anything about how to set a website up, what to do, and training and walking you through it. And I can't speak for all the companies, but I know with that particular one, very customer friendly, responds right away, and so there's no reason not to have one because they are not very expensive. And I know at least with YL Dist, if you pay for like a year in advance, it's ridiculously cheap. And then there's constantly, they have sales. I think I paid $6 or $7 a month. It's negligible.
Yeah, so to that point, I just want to, as you're just alluding to, just to remind everyone, if someone's listening to the replay, that this appears in the executive training. You really don't need a website until you're executive. I may have even been silver when I got a website. Like, people would ask me for my website. A website really is for a person that's trying to build online and that you're trying to drive traffic. Like, that's really what it's for. And I am an extrovert. I spend time meeting people in person. If you're going to blog and you're going to try to drive traffic, then a website is an essential thing to do if that's the way that you're going to build. Once you're executive, though, you have a business, people are going to ask you, what's your website? You do want it to be easy for them. And like Anthony stated, now we can get it for what, $10 or $5 a month? I can't remember what it is, but a lot cheaper than Marketing Sense is like $50 a month. So $10 a month through Young Living is a lot better deal. So, there isn't any reason not to get it. But just remember that that's what it's designed for. I have signed someone up through my website. I have had someone come on there and request information, and they were an individual that I was friends with that moved to another state, and I sent her a couple of my YouTube videos over and over, and I was able to educate them from a distance. So I have gotten results from it. But I definitely personally don't spend the appropriate amount of time that I'm supposed to make sure that it does what it could do for me. So just remember that if you're going to spend that money, there is back office stuff that you can do. You have to physically put your events on there. You have to put, if you're going to put articles, you have to physically put those articles on there. It does take time to do that. And you need to make sure that you're balancing that with your income producing activities, such as having classes and actually educating people.
All right, very good. All right, so with that being said, let's move on to the next next area. We're talking about the importance of promoting and attending events. So this was a GoPro video from Eric Worre. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I firmly suggest it. But I keep going back to this book because it really hones in on what they're talking about in that video. So for those who haven't read Randy Gage's Making the First Circle Work that we've been talking about the past few weeks, please read it. It is such a good book. But it talks about the 5 purposes of major events and the reasons why you want to promote your events. The 5 main reasons that we conduct events are: number 1, to gain knowledge; number 2, to improve attitude; number 3, to change behavior; number 4, to develop skills; and number 5, to build belief. So when you think about it, all of those are the things that are essential to your business. You constantly want to be educating yourself, not necessarily just from a product standpoint, but about business, about your business, so that you can grow. If you've been in a slump and maybe you're having a slow period in your business, what's a greater way to improve your attitude about your business than to attend an event, which helps to change your behavior. For developing skills, I know that when we do Shannon's events, or even when we put on the rallies, we always have some type of speaker that's pointed toward developing some type of skill set within your organization. So that's great for that. And then number 5 overall, I feel like is one of the biggest ones. It's to realize that you're part of something that's bigger than you. And so it allows you to build belief not only in Young Living as a company, build belief in your products, but build belief in yourself that you can continue to do this. So those are the reasons that you need to attend them, but also realize that that's reflective upon you and your organization. So your organization needs to be there as well for them to have those experiences. So some of the things that the book brings out that are excellent is people can come and they can see personal success stories. So one thing that we think about is sometimes when we're talking to individuals and we're talking about all the success that we're having, some of our close family and friends who know us, they might be like, yeah, okay, they tend to embellish a little bit. So maybe they're not doing as well as they try to put it off like they are. But when they come to an event, and if we're promoting events, then they can hear personal success stories from individuals other than you, helping to build a better case for your business. You also they'll get product training. So say someone has been newly introduced into the company and they want to expand their knowledge, or they want to learn more about a certain product, those things are at events. Skills trainings in the core competencies of meeting people, working the candidate list, inviting and following up. So those are money-making activities, right? Those are actually income-producing activities, and no doubt we want to get better at those. So I think of instantly convention, how last year Eric Worre was at convention and did a whole GoPro segment. Every year, I think when we look at the convention classes, there is usually a good mix of classes based on product, even classes like, what was it, epigenetics was one class. But they also do a lot of classes on marketing, on how to get how to get better at meeting people, and how to get better at those skills. So that's a great reason to promote them. Leadership development. I know one of the leadership classes that I took at convention last year actually was huge for me, because I thought I looked at being a leader as being the person that tells people what to do, because I've always considered myself good at that, like looking at, okay, well, if you just do this, then you get a better result. But when you develop leadership skills, you're helping to improve yourself. It's more about improving yourself, because when you're a good leaders lead from the front. So that means that you're doing things that people want to copy and follow. So that's great for you. And then one of the things that are at events I think is great is assignments or marching orders. So when a person leaves an event, they should have some type of direction as to, okay, what do I need to do between here and the next event so that I can either rank up or achieve whatever goal I set forth. So when you think about it, with all of those things at events, it's important that we're having events and having them consistently. But when you promote them, it's not just announcing and saying that this event will be at this particular place at this particular time. It's about letting people know that, hey, this event is coming up. I've got my ticket. I'm going to be there. We've got we're carpooling to get there, or if it's out of town and you need to fly, these are the rates for airline tickets right now. Have you gotten your ticket yet? What can I do to help you get there? That's what promoting an event is. It's not just announcing that this event is coming up. It's facilitating and helping individuals to be able to attend it. So that's why I recommend that book, because it goes into detail on that even more so. And even Eric Worre talks about it in the video on why that's so important. That's really where the growth in your business comes from, is from promoting and marketing events. So those are my 2 cents to share. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that?
Just to reiterate a couple of the points, I think it's really important to edify the speakers, edify your other upline that might be at those events, and it's so important and good for them to hear the stories from other people. That is so key, because the 3 things that we need to have very clearly that Adam Green always talks about is that we have to have a firm belief in the products, we have to have a firm belief in ourselves, and we have to have a firm belief in the business model. And most people are lacking a firm belief in the business model and a firm belief in themselves. And by getting them to those events, they can understand the heart, the company of what Young Living, like I've said it so many times before, me being at a convention and seeing the caliber of doctors that they've, and being on the farm and all of that stuff, like no one can say anything to me about another business. Like when someone has their protein shake, when someone goes to another health and wellness company, I actually just feel a little bit of pity for them. Like, just like, you know, I'm like, there's nothing that when you're promoting your makeup, like you can't give me something that I don't already have with Young Living. And I know that I have the best. Like my faith from being at convention is unshakable. It's just rock solid. Like there's nothing anybody can say. I have no doubt that I am in the best health and wellness company. And then the same thing, seeing other speakers and seeing that they do what they do, you know, especially for me, like people see everything that I do and they'd be like, well, I can't do this because I'm not Tashina. She doesn't sleep. No one has her energy, right? They have to be around other moms that are doing it. They have to be around people like Shannon Hudson, who has a lot of physical disabilities that she had to overcome to grow her business, to see, oh, wait, maybe I can do this. Like Shannon's not perfect yet, and she still was able to build her business with Diamond. Like she loves to say, I was fat, hairy, in a wheelchair, and I was able to make money with this. Like, guys, you have no excuse. Like you can do this. Just build the dream and take the people with you on the journey. You don't have to be there already. So those two things are just so key for building your own belief and belief in the business. You have to get to the events and especially convention for that.
All right, very good. Anybody else have anything that they want to share? If not, we'll move on. All right. So let's move on then, because I think we're down to our last 10 minutes. So one of the other, there was 2 videos that talks about time management. I'm going to share my screen again. The reason why something like this was so important, let me see if I can pull it up. So Scott and Brenda did the video. A lot of times we get, oh, you can't see. A lot of times we get people who say, well, I can't build because I don't have the time. And the interesting thing about that video is sometimes we just say that just because, you know, like in our minds, we may legitimately feel like we don't. But the purpose of this time log that they put in the training is just to help you keep track of your time. It's not a like an everyday thing, but he suggested doing it for a couple of days and see where your time goes. So this starts at 6 a.m. because he said Brenda gets up at 6 a.m. If you are an early riser, you can start at 6, but start whenever you wake up and put everything on there. So like when you brush your teeth, if you take a shower and get dressed, have a cup of coffee or breakfast, chart all of that so that you can keep track of how much time is actually spent through the day. So you put all that information there. And then up here where it says purpose and project, you put whether it is something like what was your reasoning for doing it. So let's say that at 9 o'clock you were on Facebook. Well, what was the purpose of being on Facebook? Was it for recreation or was it for business? Were you on there talking to people on Facebook Messenger? And then you rate the effectiveness of it. So is this something that really adds to my goal of trying to build a business with Young Living? Or does it detract? So is it low, average, or high? Because when you keep track, no doubt you're going to find time that's wasted throughout the day. It's just human nature. And let's say that you don't feel like you've wasted any time. Well, then you can look at the effectiveness scale and say, okay, well, what is low priority on my activities that I've done through the day? Is this something that I can maybe table while I try to build my business? So this is not for you to show to your upline leader. This is for you personally to use to track your time, to figure out where you have time that you can slot in to do your business. When we look at the income disclosure statement, I believe it has the average hours worked on there, right? So, you know, when it says, I can't remember what the average hours for executive, it's 10 to 12, isn't it? Yeah, so Tashina's nodding, yes. So 10 to 12 hours a week to hit executive. So if you feel like you don't have 10 to 12 hours a week, this is a great activity to do. Track your week and see how much time that you can give up and you'll maybe find that 10 to 12 hours. So this is for personal use, for those individuals that feel like they don't have time. Does anyone have anything they want to add on that?
When I first saw this log, I thought, before I watched the video, I thought, oh Lord, they want me now to be accountable to somebody for my time. How am I going to do that? But when they explained it, it made a lot of sense. And I got to thinking, it's sort of like what Tashina was saying about the investment in yourself, that you just being aware. This is just for us to be aware of where we're spending our own time and the trickle down effect that it could have for every aspect of your life, because you don't realize how much time you waste in a day, just a little something here, a little something there that could be used productively in another way, whether it's for Young Living or it's for, like, if you're not well and you need to get more sleep. Okay, what are you wasting so you get some more sleep so then you can focus on your business? But just whatever it is, just to be aware of what you were doing. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, and I've actually heard other articles on this before, and I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I think we even had a magazine for those that are Jehovah's Witnesses that suggested doing this. So it is really eye-opening, and it does, we unconsciously do certain things, even like when we're at work, we just surf the internet and we don't realize how much time we're wasting. So it's very helpful activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I encourage those to fill that out, find time. Okay, so we have to move on. We have 5 minutes left. So I just want to touch on some of the other things because I feel like we've already talked about them to some extent. Let me share this here so people can see as I'm talking about this. So some other things that you want to consider once you hit the executive level is consider purchasing oily tools. I know Dana and I use it. We actually absolutely love that app because we can track in real time not only what our check will look like, but what does our organization look like. We can track everyone's ER dates. It notifies us when someone enrolls someone new within the business. So it is a great way to manage your business. I think it's about $5 or $6 a month, which is relatively cheap. It is on Android and iOS. So if that's something that you feel like you could benefit from, consider purchasing oily tools. We talked about how to identify and support your 2 key leaders because those are necessary for you to hit executive. So, you are trying to build 2 senior stars. So identify people who are on the cusp of being able to hit senior star and who place their qualifying order each month. One of the big things to keep in mind with that is Sarah Harnish kind of talks about this. Don't just build those 2 legs because let's say you have someone who's about to qualify as your other leg that you need to hit executive. Maybe they have like 900 OGV. Someone places a $100 order. Now they have the 1,000 OGV that you need for that qualifying leg. But let's say they don't then place their own personal order of 100 PV. Now that leg doesn't qualify. So look at their history. Do they have a history of consistently placing that order? Are they actively trying to build and pursue anything? Identify those things to see who are the leaders that you want to work with, help them to hit senior star so that you may hit executive. The next video that was talked about very briefly, Scott talks about opening a business checking account or having a business credit card. Now this was excellent suggestion because for the IRS purposes, when you have a business checking account, it does help add to the legitimacy of your business. So we know that network marketing is a legitimate business model, but think from the IRS standpoint, you want to have taken all the steps to help them see that it's a legitimate business and not just a hobby. So maybe consider opening that checking account or having a business credit card to keep your finances separate. One of the things that Scott mentioned in that video that I didn't even think about is if you have a business credit card that you set up that you can attribute or gain miles on, you can use those to purchase your airline tickets to go to convention. So for those individuals that are saying flights are too expensive to go to Salt Lake City, if you have a business credit card that you're using even for all your purchases through your business, like you're using it to purchase your ER order, you're gaining all those miles that you can use to potentially get to convention for cheaper. So that's something to think about. And then check out those links, YL Family Training. We've talked about those. And we've done the Vital Conversations before, which is the weekly accountability tracker. So continue to fill that out. Just because you've hit executive doesn't mean that you stop filling that out, and then send it to your accountability partner. One thing that was interesting is you can send it weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly, whatever you've determined. Fill it out and send that out. I'm not really going to get into the making the most out of your virtual office downline viewer because I am a huge Oily tool user, but for those individuals that do want to learn how the downline viewer works in the back office of Young Living, check that video out. I'm going to open it up because we have about a minute or so left. If there's anything that I didn't touch on that anyone wants to add or anything that they want to promote.
Just really quickly, under the time management, the second video, the 10 tips, the graphics on that video are horrible, but there were some really very good time management tips in that video. It's one that I think I'm going to rewatch a few times. Very simple, but it made a lot of sense, so it's worth watching. Don't skip over it.
I do use the virtual office, but Anthony, can you open up everything we got to go through next week under the mentor tab? Yeah, so there's not a lot, so maybe we can just touch on that next week since I haven't listened to or watched that video to get what the gist of what they're saying. But I do, because I am a laptop person, I hate using my cell phone more than I have to. I do use the virtual office a lot, so I think we can just touch on that next week.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So really quickly, does anyone have any events or anything coming up that they need to promote? Dana and I are doing the home detox class on Saturday at 3 o'clock at Rusty Bucket in Bingham Farms. So you can use that event to plug some of your prospects into, or if you'd like to attend to get the knowledge as well. Remember, we attend events for our personal benefit as well, to educate ourselves. So that'll be a great event to do so. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Then the 22nd, there will be a Intro to Oils Facebook class online. So all are welcome to attend and use that as well. So feel free to promote that event. Is it posted in Happy Oilers?
Yeah. Okay. The event is created.
Okay. So we'll see about getting that in Happy Oilers, but feel free to promote that as well. That'll be coming up on the 22nd. And then we have our team gathering on the 28th, is it? 27th. So that'll be here at our house. I believe, did we establish a time for that? Okay. Stay posted for the events for the details on that. I believe it's going to be 3 o'clock as well. But just to make everyone aware that we will be hosting a team event here at the house on the 27th. So with that being said, thank you everyone for tuning in live and for your contributions. For those watching on the replay, I hope you find this information beneficial. And we look forward to seeing everyone on our call next week. So we've got your homework for the mentor section. So come ready and prepared to share something next week. So look forward to seeing you guys then. With that being said, everyone have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night, and thank you.
All right, I'm going to end this.